Vishal, thank you so much for joining us in this next edition of the Fire Up series. It's a startup founder interview series where we are trying to extract some best practices and experiences from various startups to share with the peer community. And at Descign, you are doing something very unconventional, trying to look at how AI, especially NLP and text processing, AI can be leveraged to make sense out of research papers for researchers. Right? It's not for laymen. It's for researchers that are doing a deeply intellectual analysis of these papers, trying to use AI to get value for them. That's a very unconventional realm. So that's what we're going to talk about today, power of AI in unconventional realms. So thanks, Vishal, for joining us. And to just set the context, can you quickly narrate your journey in a few minutes, how the idea of design came up and how the journey been till now?
Well, thanks for having me, Ramesh sir. The idea of design came up because of my exposure in different fields. So, to put it briefly, I have a bachelor's in biotechnology, a master's in nanobiophysics in Germany, and a PhD in artificial intelligence. I've worked in a lot of premier institutes in India, CCMB, IISc, and also in EMBL Heidelberg and other European top institutes. And so moving from biology to physics to chemistry, microfluidics, and then AI, working with scientists in all these different domains, I got to see how everyone is doing their research. And I realized that the way we do biomedical research is sort of broken. It can use a lot of tools to help improve the efficiency of it. So that's how we came up with design. We just are trying to build software tools to remove the inefficiencies when people do research. That was the whole idea of it.
So it's one thing to kind of try and find information from the documents, searching and such. It's something else to. I mean, when a researcher looks, they're not searching. I mean, they have enough search tools already. So they are not searching text-based information. They're looking for something something more nuanced. So how did you even kind of initially come up with the idea that technology could do that?
So search is one, let's say, a part of our product, what we do, right? So what we do is we're trying to remove efficiencies in the entire research workflow. So it starts with, so let's say a general research workflow can begin with searching for information, right? And which is then followed by designing experiments. That's where the name of the company comes from, design, which is followed by deployment and monitoring, and then sharing the results. So it's like, let's say we can break it down into 4 or 5 stages roughly. During the search part of it, right? Conventional, let's say, search engines like Google Scholar and PubMed, right? They allow you to filter your results based on the metadata which is provided, which is the name of the journal, the year it was published in, right? The authors. But that is a very inefficient process again, because you can just narrow it down. So let's say from 10,000 papers to 200, maybe 2,000 papers, right? But till date, since let's say the first paper, which was published around 350 years ago, we have around 80 million papers published, more than 80, suppose, like different, papers have different numbers. And annually, we're publishing around 2.5 to 3 million papers every year, right? So for a researcher to stay on top of, their work, to have a command over the latest research, it's impossible. This is where AI is helpful, because it can crunch, it can pass all these papers and give information, right? Relevant, important information. So we don't need to read through thousands of papers every year. We can focus on, doing our research, find answers, and then go apply it, include it in our design. So we started off with search. In search, what we've done is, like you pointed out, we use natural language processing and deep learning. And we're not looking for, we're looking for specific entities like diseases, chemicals, medicines, proteins, right? And then we try to extract relationships out of them and present it to the researcher. So they can use these entities as filters. So as a part of, so what we've done is, this is not actually the main focus of our product, but because of the COVID outbreak, the pandemic, we've used the CORD database, which is the COVID Open Research Data Set, which has been published by the Allen Institute of Artificial Intelligence and the White House and a few other partners together. And we built a search engine for researchers to go and find answers in the database. So it's around 55 to 60,000 papers, if I'm not wrong. We keep updating it every 2 weeks. And we built a search engine. We've just done the beta last week. And hopefully within the next, by the end of this month, we want to launch it.
So what all can it look for when you say search engine for COVID? What all kinds of information can it find?
So now there are, see, this is not the only effort out there. I think there are more than 10 search engines out there. We think this might be the only one in India, but there are more than 10 search engines. So there are different types of analysis which, AI enabled search engines can give. A lot of them give co-occurrences of entities, right? So they look through all the papers. So if you're looking for a particular medicine or a disease, they tell you what other entities occur with them frequently. And what they do is they just don't go through the abstract, which is what conventional search engines do. They go through the entire text. That's where the most of the information is there. And some of the other AI-enabled tools, which are question answer systems, right? So they basically, you can ask them a question in natural language, and they give the answer by going through all the papers. So let's say 60,000 papers. A big problem with that is with QA systems specifically is you really need to validate the answer with an expert, which is not that easy because everyone's busy. All doctors are busy. Any infectious disease expert is really busy, taking care of other things. So what we've done is our search engine specifically, what it does is it passes through all the 60,000 papers in depth text analysis, lists out all the entities, right? So let's say if you go search for coronavirus, right, it would list out all the organisms it's related to in that 60,000 papers. So if you, let's say, search for coronaviruses in our DB, you would have 12,000 results. Then, but on the left-hand side, we create a filter, dynamically created filter of all the organisms listed out in those papers, all the diseases, all the medicines, all the chemicals, right? And then you could go to the organisms, which would not just organisms, but be tissues, let's say, organs as well. You could go see, okay, this coronavirus is, along with coronavirus, which other organs have been mentioned? Is it just the lungs, or is it kidneys as well? Or is there any other organ which has been mentioned? So this helps researcher in finding new information which they would have overlooked earlier on. And it does
It's
it in a
more
very
like
easy
you model the domain and you're bringing the domain's model into the whole the process of trying to find your information.
In a way, yes, you could put it that way, definitely.
So, so what are the use cases? Who are your potential users, and what do they use it for?
So there are a lot of users. What we've done over the years is built the basic technology of parsing because, I mean, it's a nightmare to work with scientific literature. It's unstructured to begin with. I mean, they all have a structure, but then you have so many publications, so many journals, more than 10,000 publications and journals, and then they all have their own formats. And when you go ask them for information, you get a PDF. So extracting information from PDF, structuring it into your schema, and starting from there is a nightmare. But then moving forward, the applications could be just basically looking for answers, finding information quickly, right? And not spending time reading hours, right? Not spending hours going through like a lot of papers, like 10, 20 papers before you find a particular parameter. So one use case which we actually started getting into AI was when researchers want to design an experiment, they need to look for parameters, let's say incubation temperatures or pH or molarity of certain chemicals. And to find this information, they need to read through hundreds of papers because method is the most underreported section in the paper. So what we realized is when we started off, we were like, okay, we're going to find information, you're going to find the parameters, and you're going to give it to the researcher. This would save them so much time. Imagine if you could just reduce the time looking for a parameter. Stop. You don't have to read through hundreds of papers. But then we realized, no, one paper does not have that information. So we ended up sort of building knowledge graphs where we're like, okay, for a particular experiment, for let's say you're trying to incubate, a certain type of cells, or what would be the right temperature to do it, right, for a particular type, and how many papers would you have to read. So what we started doing for a particular experiment or a protocol, we started consolidating all that data into a graph. And now when the user designs that same, let's say, protocol or method, right, we can recommend them the best temperatures. So we initially started we used to go, if you go on Amazon and you try buying books, it recommends you other useful books. What we've done is we built the same thing to science, that when you're doing an experiment, we recommend you better parameters to, get a more successful outcome. This is one of the applications. Other applications could be just basically going through all the unstructured data a pharma company has accumulated over the years, right? And to be able to query it, right? Using semantic processing to find, basically looking for similar questions and not exactly keyword search, right? To answer questions like, okay, have we done this experiment before? What was the data for it?
The value is that you're able to map this information in the whole pharmaceutical research domain? Is there the value you bring? Because it's not just a simple information search; it's something more than that, right?
No, it's not a simple information search to begin with. The thing is, yeah, but we can map all of it. It starts with a simple information search, but the thing is, it has to go through an entire pipeline of basically being from unstructured to structured. The biggest problem with we face is not really the AI part of it, right? It's been the cleaning of it.
Yeah,
Because
making it sense for the domain. I mean, for a pharma
yeah,
researcher, the information should be in a format, in a way that it makes sense for them, that they could use it.
absolutely.
So that's the biggest, I think, which is where I think any solution, technology is only a tool, right? By itself, it's not going to be a magical solution for anything. You have to take the technology and do something with it to make it work for the domain. Now, how did you discover this problem? I mean, like, because it's not something that's very obvious. Nobody's going to come and tell you, like, can you do this for us? Right? Because nobody knows that such a thing is possible. They might not come and ask you, use AI and get us this. So how did you even discover that such a problem exists? It's worth solving.
So this was during my PhD, and my doctoral thesis was on automating biological experiments, creating a language for that. So we realized early on that biologists don't code, not bioinformaticians, but biologists don't code. So we started developing language based on what's it called? I'm sorry, BioBlocks, Blockly, like the MIT Scratch. So we customize it to the domain of biologists. People could just bring these Lego-like pieces together, right? Jigsaw puzzles, and code their protocols, which could then be automated onto a compatible robotic platform. And at that point, we were looking for protocols, methods, and there was no methods which were available online. It's only very recently that reproducibility has got, the elephant in the room has been addressed, and people are taking care of it, reporting their methods properly. But earlier, there was no proper repository for it. So going through, let's say, scientific publications and trying to extract the method of what a scientist has actually done, right? It was a nightmare. So we were like, oh, I mean, I can't go through 10,000 papers and, extract all this information manually. This is going to take me like 10 years, 20 years, maybe even more or never. So we were like, okay, what technologies are available to do this? So we said, okay, NLP is available. So let's start with NLP. And then there were a lot of roadblocks there itself, the way we write protocols. English itself is a really bad problem, a language for science, right? Everyone, there's so many problems. We all speak English differently. We all communicate differently. So all papers have been written differently. NLP is a good solution. AI is a really good solution, and it can really help researchers going forward.
So what I mean, so you gave use cases that is there today, like if they're looking at particular either a chemical or an organism or a molecule, they can search and find what has been done so far, and so they can build from there. Now that in itself is useful, like you said, like when there are like tens of thousands of papers to sift through. So this is a fantastic tool to narrow down quickly. Now, what do you see? I mean, say next year, 2 years, 3 years, like as even technology evolves, what do you think are some of the more wild use cases possible? Even if you still stick to the pharma life sciences space right now, what do you think are some of the interesting use cases possible?
So, I mean, we started with this audacious goal of building Jarvis from Iron Man, right?
Building?
Jarvis from Iron Man. You've seen the Iron Man movie, the AI,
yes.
the personal assistant. That's what we want to build. So what we've built at the, let's say at the fundamental, thing is to be able to make the AI understand, published literature. So tomorrow, I mean, today we have a graphical interface. Tomorrow we want to go to a voice interface where I can communicate with the AI and tell them, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so information, right? And can you pull that out from the database? So it can just look up every, published paper, right? Which is open access, which is another problem we could have, a discussion with, and it pulls out all that information and then it, presents it in a way I can understand it, right? And then that can basically inform me to make the next set of decisions. And then the AI can actually draw the method and then send it to a remote lab for deployment. And then I can gather that information and bring it back to the user, and it helps me analyze the data and, reveals insights which would have been otherwise difficult for me.
So there's the whole language technology at the bottom, which is the language understanding, NLP, and like the whole semantics of the documents.
Yes.
Then you're saying like you're going to model the whole, the various structure. I mean, this page unstructured text, you're creating some structured layer on top of it, right?
Yes.
Which way mapping that the different understanding from the license standpoint. And then you're saying that now you can go a step further and like build a very intelligent system that you can interact with and get the information you're looking for with a combination of the unstructured data and the model that you're building. So, but to some extent, it should be possible even today, right? With what you have.
So we are just a few months away from launching the entire thing, the entire stack. So our product is basically, let's say, a full stack research solution where you can search, design, deploy, and monitor all of it. Let's say a regulatory compliant way. The industry really needs FDA CFR 21 regulation to be followed. So we've built it out that way, and the AI part of it is just the cherry on the top where we can keep improving it. The thing is, the researchers today really don't want all this. That's a big problem. They're very happy doing the way research was done 350 years ago, since the first paper came out. They're very happy with their pen and paper. And they're very wary of AI, right? They don't believe in it. They think it's going to replace them. So for us to be able to actually prove its value, right? To come, okay, look, you're going to spend let's say 10 hours looking for this, parameter value. How about you just click this button and it searches for you and gives it to you, so you can focus on what you really like doing, right? And
I know it's a double-edged sword. I mean, like if you embrace it, it's a multiplier. It's a force multiplier. If you embrace it,
yeah.
If you don't embrace it, then it's going to replace. You're soon going to become obsolete. I mean, the others that embrace it, they're going to be doing much better. So I think that's the power of new technology, which I think they should understand and be able to use it right.
No, true, absolutely right. And we've been working right from the beginning with researchers, right, very closely. Let's say evaluating our idea at every stage, validating them with the partners, right? And we've got really good feedback. They're really looking forward to working with us, right, testing it out. And I mean, it's the potential is immense, the possibilities, because if you have an end-to-end platform which is AI enabled, right, you're not limited by the number of experiments you want to do. You can design experiments which can search larger biological and chemical sequence spaces, right? You can come out with products and drugs faster. We can really shift from a chemical-based economy to a bio-based economy, which I believe is the next decade we're heading into.
Mm-hmm.
And with the pandemic, people have suddenly started valuing scientists and doctors even more, right? So I think the time is right for us to actually get inside the market and give this to our
I know, absolutely.
customers.
I think it's a fantastic time to do it. You're right. A lot of attention, a lot of awareness, a lot of interest, and hopefully a lot of support as well in terms of grants and funding. So I'm sure this is a very exciting phase. So all the best, Vishal, as you kind of get into the next phase, and hopefully the opportunity that's come out due to the COVID will also help get the product more wider acceptance. Now, before we sign off, Vishal, one growth hack tip that you would like to share from your experiences with other startups.
Well, we've not really launched our product officially, but so I don't know, growth hack. What I really like is my mantra is I try to work with the best people. So my team, even though it's really small, I make sure that I hire and work with the best out there. So that's really helped us to get build a very robust product, and we're very confident when we go speak to our customers about what we built.
That's fantastic. So true. So Vishal, thank you so much again for joining us, and
Thank you so much for having me.
And all the best.
Thank you so much.